Hi, this is Natalie Lander, voice of Kinsey, Tara Branford, Stargirl, and many others. You are listening to a W2Mnet podcast. You can visit W2Mnet.com for other podcasts about entertainment, video games, sports, and wrestling. You are listening to Video Games to the Max.
Hello, everybody. Good morning, as it's 1:30 in the morning. You're either up stupidly late like I am, or you just woke up also like I am. This is another special episode of Video Games to the Max here on W2M Network. Make sure to find us everywhere you prefer to listen to us. I have with me this evening, as always, the disembodied voice of Dr. Manhattan, Mr. Eric Watkins. How are you doing?
This is what happens when you doubt me, Bryan.
Oh, I
You
don't
should not have doubted me.
look. You can. We'll save those particular terms for different Twitters. How about that? But
Also, you forget that other time zones exists. It's only one on the East Coast.
I'm aware other time zones also exist. Do I recognize them? No. There's only East Coast time. Look, if television operates on East Coast time, then I operate on East Coast time. But we're going to go ahead and jump right into the show here. And we're going to talk first about play-ins, because the last time you guys saw us, we left you right before the play-in knockouts. We decided we were going to take a little bit of a break here at the network, aka my schedule was not doing a podcast and doing Worlds at the same time. I think I'm finally aligned to the broadcast, so plenty of coffee, Coca-Cola coffee, stuff is good. So yeah. Play-in knockouts was not anything special. It was a boring bore fest. Okay, maybe not really a boring bore fest, but definitely they weren't memorable games. I think that's how we can put that. So in the first round of the knockouts, we had Peace go up against the Red Canids. That was actually, these are best of 5 games, and they went the distance. Surprisingly or unsurprisingly, I will let you take your pick on that. These were bottom of the barrel teams that were effectively fighting to not go home. Somebody had to win, somebody had to lose, and I'm never a fan of games where it's the bottom of the barrels fighting and somebody's got to figure out whether or not they're going home or whether they're staying.
But that extra piece of motivation is what matters.
It does, but at the end of the day, when you're the Unicorns of Love, the end result is the same, which we have some news on them we'll be getting to later on in the show as well. You thought we were done with them after they got knocked out in play-ins. Oh, no. But Peace barely edged out the win over Red Canids 3-2 in that best of 5 series. So they'll move on to the round 2 where they will play Cloud9. Meanwhile, Beyond Gaming, which we got a lot to talk to them about today. I'm sure you guys have probably heard the news by now from other reputable news sources. But they would go on, or they would fight Galatasaray. I feel like every year we have to have one Turkish team with one weird, hard to pronounce name that's associated with a football club. I almost feel like that's like some weird, like section 29.4 of the world's rule book.
Now, hang on. How is Galatasaray hard to pronounce?
Once you figure it out, it's easy. Before you figure it out, there's about 8 different ways you could probably say that. And I'm pretty sure I heard all 8 of them from the casters and the analyst desk at Worlds before everybody figured it out.
Fair.
I mean, we had Fenerbahce in the past. Now I know they're in Europe, but we've also had Splice. Their name was a little tough to catch on to. Yeah, there's a history of Turkish teams and hard to pronounce names, typically associated with a football club. It's just the thing. But I thought they were going to do well. Their day one showing in the play-ins was amazing. And then I guess they went to sleep overnight. The magic dust left out of the box, and that was it. They just did absolutely abysmal the rest of the tournament. And it was kind of sad because if they had managed to keep up the performance that they did in day one, I think they had a very good possibility of making an upset this year. But it wasn't meant to be. They would go ahead and fight Beyond Gaming in a best of 5 series that would also go the distance to 5 games. Yes, that was a very busy day. 10 games in a day. That's a lot on the broadcast crew. That's a lot for the viewers. That's a lot for everybody. I know I'm a fan of as many League of Legends games at Worlds as possible, but 10 games in a day, that's even that I think is a bit much. But we would go on the next day. We would see peace. Put it to you this way: if day one of the knockout stage was the day of extremes and the longest day on record, day 2 would be the shortest game on record. We had Cloud9 3-0 peace in spectacular fashion. And then Hanwha Life would play Beyond Gaming, and they would 3-0 in spectacular fashion. But we got some interesting news that happened between day 1 and day 2 of the knockout stage. Maoan, I'm pretty sure I'm pronouncing his name wrong, but that's international players for you. I'm sorry. Maoan was accused of match fixing, or soft match fixing, as Riot would have it defined. It turns out people are still trying to ascertain the full scope of what happened here, but effectively, he let other parts of his anatomy do the talking for his brain. We'll put it that way. I'm sure our producer back there probably knows all about that.
Okay, first of all, Mawan. Second of all, that only happens under select circumstances. Over time, I've gotten better at it.
Well, Maoan apparently is not good at it because he leaked pick and ban information to a Instagram influencer, and it was found out. It was reported to Riot, or Riot found it out. One of the two. The circumstances are still unknown. There are varying accounts that Riot found out through their own internal investigations and tip-offs, and then there's also an account. There are also accounts out there that the team itself, and specifically Beyond Gaming's owner, tipped off Riot directly. But needless to say, Maoan was suspended for the remainder of the tournament, which means Beyond Gaming did not have their starting mid laner against, not even arguably, just flat out, the toughest team to beat in the Chovy show on Hanwha Life. That was disconcerting. I feel bad for Doggo out of all of this because this is a man who is literally sitting there pulling his team up by the bootstraps. He is trying his absolute damnedest to carry his team, and he's having to 1v9 both on the rift and off the rift, and it's just I feel bad for him. I don't have access to the global contract database, but I'd love to know when his contract is up with Beyond Gaming, because if it's up this year, then I really hope to see him go off to another team that has the capability to use his talents. He's an immaculate. Yeah, we'll use immaculate. Why not? Because I don't know what word I was going for there, but it sounded like immaculate. He's an immaculate AD carry. He absolutely excelled. He held his own against some of the better AD carries in the tournament, or at least in the play-ins. But yeah, Mawon gets suspended. Beyond Gaming is forced to field a replacement. The only replacement that they have with them in Reykjavik is their replacement top laner, who ends up going mid, and it was a non-factor for Hanwha Life. They were able to very easily 3-0 them. The games honestly aren't even worth going back and looking at. That because they were that much of a stomp. The broadcast day was very quick on play-ins day 2. There was a distinct possibility for a while that Beyond Gaming may have had to forfeit if they could not field a replacement mid laner, and Galatasaray could have gone through to the group stage or to play Hanwha Life instead. If it was Galatasaray and Hanwha Life, I think it would have been a much closer series. But again, it's an interesting situation what happened there, because from what I've seen on Twitter and what I've seen from a couple of the esports journalists, is that apparently he was caught leaking potential pick ban information talking about effectively what champs he thought were going to be played by him, so that the other person could go and bet on those, because there are sports gambling websites that you can actually bet on what champions get picked, mainly because the meta happens so much. The meta gets to a point where it's defined enough that you can bet with pretty good accuracy on what champions are going to show up. But he basically told her,
not that we have any sort of experience at this network with any sort of gambling or anything of that sort.
well, it's a good thing you're not in Taiwan where these guys are from, because it's illegal.
Bryan,
Oh,
again.
I know. You're being facetious and I'm being serious. Because not only are these folks in deep water with Riot, they're probably going to be in some very deep water with the Taiwanese authorities as well.
Like the Taiwanese authorities have any real standing on something like this and gambling. Have you seen the variety of scandals that have plagued their professional baseball league over the past, I don't know, decade and a half?
No, because I'm not a baseball person. Sorry, but I'll
Look
take your word
into
for
them.
it.
We're talking legitimate triads and other families of the mafia. It's actually very fascinating in its own right.
Well, it's funny you mentioned that, because Taiwan geographically pretty much right next to China, right? This is pretty safe.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. So last year there was actually a huge, and I mean huge, match fixing scandal that ran rampant through the China League and the China Development League. It was so much so that I believe it was somewhere in the ballpark of 50 players, coaches, support staff, etc., all received some sort of punishment from Riot. I know the notable one is there were 18 lifetime competitive bans from resulting from that scandal. So the fact that this is happening right next door in Taiwan, not a good look for Riot, for Beyond Gaming, for Maoan, for anybody over there right now. A lot of people, myself included, that are in the know on these sort of things and understand, or at least try to have an understanding of how Riot works, seems to believe that Maoan is going to likely receive a lifetime ban after Worlds has concluded and Riot can fully devote time to the investigation. Right now, with Worlds going on, biggest tournament of the year, Riot staff is obviously swamped. But after the tournament, I expect both Riot Global and Riot Taiwan, to really dig into this and find out what happened here. But if it's anywhere as close to as bad as I think it is, and what it's looking like so far, I expect no less than a lifetime competitive ban for Maoan.
Am I wrong in being curious about which particular Instagram influencer this is?
It's pretty easy to find on Twitter. But to say that the man did it for some cleavage pictures it's sad. Because there's even reports out there right now, and again, these are unconfirmed reports, unconfirmed reporting, that he was actually catfished, and it wasn't even the actual influencer that was asking him for these leaks. Now that I'm going to take with a grain of salt until Riot concludes its investigation, or
Now,
they
and
say.
I thought the whole PJ Richardson situation was pathetic. This would be exponentially worse if true.
Yeah, man gets himself lifetime banned over some titty pics, and they weren't even like full titty pics. It's just your normal Instagram influencer pictures. And we're going to leave it at that because this isn't that kind of show. But
yeah, you can ignore any typing noises that you may or may not hear.
But yeah, no, the his coach actually, or it's not, sorry, not his coach, his the owner actually did go on stream. I believe it was either Twitch or Facebook Live or the Chinese equivalent. It might have been Weibo or Weibo. I'm not. I never remember how to pronounce that properly. But they went on there and said that he was going to fire Maoan immediately, and then they confiscated the rest of the players' cell phones to assist in the Riot investigation as well. So I'm pulling up something here because I thought I had this pulled up, and I guess I didn't. So
Yes, I may also need your help in also searching what I in particular am looking for.
But yeah, that is the big news from play-ins. This is the first time I believe this has ever happened at Worlds. I can't recall any other time that this sort of thing has happened. Honestly, yeah, it was the funny thing about it, as I get some earwax out of my ear there. Sorry. For those of you watching, and now for those of you listening. There was some salt in the. I think there was a little bit of salt in the wound on the pick ban for one of the games, though, because the whole controversy was that Malon would pick Silas or Oriana in one of the games, and in one of the games, Hanwha Life actually played Oriana against Beyond Gaming. But it was basically what happened is a screenshot of his chat. This is actually a summary I'm going to read from a Twitter thread here, and I'll even copy it and put it into our thing here so this can get added to the description. A screenshot of Malon's chat gets leaked with him saying Silas and Oriana, but don't buy too much. It's just a high chance. Talking to the Instagram influencer. I would like to use other terms, but I don't know how well I can use them. Or plus, I would prefer cancel culture to not send me hate emails. So.
Yes, as you'll find out later in the week here on the network, there's already going to be issues with cancel culture in other areas.
Yes, I would like to refer to this person as the T word, but we're not going to do that. But basically, Dinter, who is the owner of Beyond Gaming, get on his stream. Apparently, Dinter confronted Malon and confirmed that he gave up the info for the betting. Dinter says that through Beyond Gaming, it was submitted to Riot, and they were hoping Riot would be a little bit more lenient on their competitive ruling, which was not the case at all. They came straight out and banned him completely. Dinter did make this VOD private, so unfortunately, there's no way to go back and take a look at that specifically. So Dinter will then went ahead and posted an apology up on his Facebook page, which is still there. In fact, I'm going to see if it'll open up right now because it should still be there. Where he effectively states that he hopes the org can find a balance between punishing Malon and not screwing over the other players. He's hoping that Malon is allowed to play and that the whole situation can be dealt with after Worlds. And that somebody else was involved in leaking the pick ban strat. Dinter thinks the original leaker did it because neither of the two champions got picked. So they lost a lot of money and were mad. That's pretty much it in a nutshell. And that tweet you're seeing is coming from one of the hosts of the PCS, which is the Taiwanese league. But yeah, needless to say, this is pretty big. Unfortunately, because Beyond Gaming got knocked out in incredibly fantastic fashion. This is probably going to be the end of this that we hear until I don't know, probably November. I would like late November. I'd honestly say at this rate. There's probably one or two people in the background somewhere, trying to do some research and asking some questions. But for right now, that's where it stands. I'm sure we'll find out more information later down the line. And when we do, we're definitely going to come back to this subject. because these type of situations happening at Worlds are unprecedented. Like Worlds is the highest level of competition, and people just don't do dumb shit like this.
You would think.
Unfortunately for Malon, regardless of what happens to him in a professional context, I guess you could call it, his career is ruined. Like, no team is going to take him. His performance at Worlds did not really look that great to begin with, so I don't think he's got very strong international prospects. His home region definitely isn't going to take him after this. Um, as a coach, definitely not as a coach. Highly unlikely as a player. So I unfortunately hate to say it, but I think this kid's career is over right here. Like he is done for. Like he's hope he hasn't served his compulsory military service yet, because that's if that is a thing in China or Taiwan. I'm not. I know Korea has it. I'm not sure about China, to be honest with you. Um, but yeah, military might be a good way to go, kid. It sucks to be you. Is what I have to say at the end of all of that. Again, I'm very curious to see what happens with this story, but for right now,
Question: how old is Malwan? Because I have an
uh,
answer to your question.
you know what? Let's go to Wikipedia and find out. Malwan. Of course, it doesn't say because he's from a low end region. Well, I don't know if I should call them low end region, but apologies to our fans of the PCS. Really do not mean to insult your region. No, I do not want to search for. He is 18.
Okay, so
Oh, this is hilarious. This is hilarious. You want to know something funny?
what?
We share a birthday. I have to share a birthday with this cheating son of a bitch.
Well, I do have a follow-up question as far as from a riot standpoint, but to answer your question, yes, he does still have to. Uh, I
Remember,
mean,
this is Taiwan, so
I know, and I'm looking at it as far as specifically Taiwan. Technically, the last group of mandatory conscripts were discharged in December of 2018, but you still have a level of unofficial conscription since they don't have enough volunteers to do it. So, if he were to still have to do it, it would only be 4 months.
well, he may want to take those 4 months and get away from WoW, or not WoW, sorry, to get away from LoL, from League of Legends, and yeah,
Yeah,
he
he's
needs.
lucky because since he's only 18, the cutoff is if you were born after 1994. Otherwise, the period would be a year. So, at least, however, it's not like in mainland China where this would be a whole situation for one of their rehabilitation camps. But that's a story for another day.
Well, let's not rule out the fact that he could be ending up in jail because, again, criminalized gambling in Taiwan. Um, if this ends up with the Taiwanese authorities, there's a significant likelihood he could be facing criminal charges for this. So, Do not want to be him right now. And I do see here that his contract in the global contract database expires at the end of 2021, which this year is November 30th.
Oof.
So he's probably not going to be re-signed. And again, he is definitely not going to. I don't think he picks up. I don't think he gets picked up on another team. He's only been playing since January of 2020 as well, so he's got about 2 years, give or take. He was with the Berjaya Dragons. I think I pronounced that correctly. In the PCS, he was with them for a season, or actually he was there from January of 2020 to February of this year. And then in March, he got picked up by Beyond Gaming, and he's been with them since. So,
It is a bit of a shame in that sense. And again, for an influencer. Now,
yeah.
granted, I'm not going to go into specifics about certain things that I would personally condone in these situations, but I would assume, given his record and his contract, and even decent performances, there were resources that he acquired that he would be able to use for specific means and or services.
Yeah. But as we realize now, the kid's 18. He's not thinking straight. I guess we'll put it that way. And
All the more reason to take those resources and use them appropriately so you can think straight afterwards.
I think I get what you're saying. Yeah. But it's an unfortunate situation.
It
But
is.
I think we've covered about as much as we can cover with this for now. Um, there's enough coverage out there if you want to dive into this a little bit more. I know there's like 3 or 4 threads on Reddit. I stay away from Reddit. Um, Twitter is about the closest thing I'll get to Reddit.
How dare you besmirch the good name of Reddit?
I'll besmirch whatever the fucking hell I want to besmirch. Okay, but that aside, not a fan of Reddit. Sorry. Um, but yeah, no, they're out of the tournament, so we'll see again probably at the end of the off season. Um, but yeah, no, that was literally the worst possible situation to be in. Now, I don't know if he did it because he's like, oh, well, this will get me out of having to play against the Chovy show. But I guess the one good thing that comes out of this is PK can say, hey, I played against Chovy and I performed better than expectations. PK being the substitute top lane for Beyond Gaming, who had to fill in mid. But again, against Chovy and the absolute powerhouse mid of Beyond Gaming, it's. But since we have play-ins out of the way, that means we get to move on to groups. So the group stage ended up settling out as follows, thanks to these lovely rules that Riot has about the same teams cannot be on teams cannot be on the same group as other teams in their region. There we go. I knew I could say that right.
So basically, like similar to football and in the UEFA Champions League, teams from the same country can't be in the same group.
Exactly. And since there was a group draw already for most of these teams, pretty much it was the first team to qualify for groups that gets to pretty much, once that settles in, it's pretty much okay, this person can't go here, they can't go there, they end up there, and that's how you end up not having to have a group draw. But I found the unspoiled because I was trying to find one, but all the ones I found had today's results on them. There is an unspoiled image for you there if you want to get that on screen for me while we talk about the groups. But with the play-in stage, out of all of those teams, we had Cloud9 from North America. We had Detonation Focus Me from Japan, which was pretty historic. It's the first time a Japanese team has ever made it out of the play-in stage and into groups, and has performed on the group stage. And then we had Hanwha Life, which is I believe that is the 4th seed from Korea. I know they are Korean. And then we have LNG, which is from China. But these are the groups. LNG and DFM made it directly in. They did not have to play the play-in knockouts because they were at the top of their groups at the end of the play-in stage. Now, I believe LNG slotted into Group D first. Then Detonation Focus Me slotted into Group B. Cloud9 is in Group A, and Hanwha Life is in Group C.
Thanks to that tiebreaker, of course.
Yeah. Tiebreaker. We're not going to talk about that. You had to go and make Cloud9 lose to the worst team in the tournament. Which, again, we're getting to in a little bit here. We have some news about Unicorns of Love later on in the show. Yeah. Typical Cloud9 branding. It's on brand for Cloud9. That's where we're going to leave that. So Cloud9 slots into Group A because there is a North American representative in Group B and Group D. And Hanwha Life cannot go into any of the other groups because there are Chinese teams there. There are Korean teams there because Korea gets 3 seeds into Worlds because they're that good. Again, Group C, Hanwha Life ends up there because you have you have Korean representatives in Group A, Damwon Kia. Group B is T1. Group D is Gen.G. So they have to go to Group C. LNG Esports ends up in Group D because you have FPX in A. You've got Ever Gaming in B. You've got Royal Never Give Up in C. And Detonation Focus Me, they're the wild card that's left over, so they get Group B. Unfortunately, out of the entirety of all of this, I feel the worst for Cloud9 because Group A is definitely the group of death. At least that's what it looks like on paper. After today's results, I'm not 100% sure yet on that one, but we're only day 1 into groups. ask me this question again this afternoon after day 2 is over, and I might be able to give you a little bit better of an analysis on that. Moving on to pick'ems, as Riot likes to call them, or group predictions. Unfortunately, picks are locked, so you cannot go in and create a pick'ems bracket now officially, but you can definitely play at home on Twitter for without getting rewards. But my picks in order. For Group A, I have pretty much almost exactly as you see it on screen there. I flipped Cloud9 and Rogue. I think Cloud9 has a shot of beating out Rogue. I think they can. They might pull an upset over FPX. I don't think it's very possible. It would be on brand for Cloud9. I know I'm saying that a lot, but and as much as I want to sit here and inhale on some North American hopium, I don't. I think Cloud9 might be able to take one of the 2 double round robin games off of Damwon, but I don't think Cloud9 is anywhere near good enough to get out of this group. Obviously, this group belongs to Damwon Kia. They are the defending champions. They have just dominated everything so far. So that's the obvious reason for them being in first. There's really not too much to say about Damwon Gaming here. FPX, that's the Chinese representative. They look strong. Obviously, Asian teams are looking better than Western teams. Eastern teams are beating the West. The gap is still there. I don't care what anybody says. The gap is closing, sure, but Cloud9 and Rogue are not going to be the ones to do it, at least not this year. So we'll take Damwon Kia in first, Fun Plus Phoenix, FPX in second, Cloud9 third, and Rogue last. Which will have, if I remember the tournament bracket correctly, that will have FPX and Damwon getting out of groups. Group B, we're looking at EDG, 100 Thieves, T1, and DFM. That's actually the order on screen is exactly how I set it up in my pick'ems. EDG is the strongest team in China right now. They have a tendency to choke on the international stage, yes. But I think they are strong enough to get out of the group on top. They'll probably drop a couple of games here and there, maybe 1, maybe 2. But they've definitely, I think they've got what it takes to come out at the top of the group. 100 Thieves, obviously the number 1 seed coming out of North America. I think they look great. They've got because apparently the new meme is wife buffs and music video buffs, and they got a really fucking big one. Believe it or not, they did a collaboration with Lil Nas X, and made a music video with him. That's been flooding Twitter since Sunday, when that was released. When we Damwon Kia's music video buff is a lot better, trust me. Showmaker has been in a relationship with this K-pop idol named Sumi for I think at least a couple years now. I want to say at least going back to 2019 Worlds. And she released a video. She wrote a song and made a video just for Damwon Kia. So yeah, I think they got the bigger buff. Just saying. But T1, we have the return of Faker. He's back, the greatest of all time, the Michael Jordan of League of Legends. He's back. the old Korean adage still remains: every 30 seconds, Ryu dies. Faker is still as excellent as he has been, but T1 has not been to Worlds in a couple of years. They're around they've pretty much have a completely new team. Koma is not K Koma is not there anymore. So they've this is the year that T1 has to prove that they still have what it takes to be the best of all time. They're the greatest of all time. This is Faker's opportunity to show the world, yes, I am Faker. I am the greatest of all time. I am not getting old. I'm not getting washed up. And they've got a statement to prove, and I hope they prove me wrong. I really do. I would love to see it. But at the end of the day, I think 100 Thieves has what it takes to edge out T1, which is why I put them in second. T1's been shaky. They have things to work on. If they can get past that, they can adapt to the meta. They can fix the communication issues. They can clean up the early game a little bit. Have the right macro. I think T1 can do it. But right now, I gotta give it with the music video buff to 100 Thieves. I'm also from NA. I got to have a little bit of hope for my region. We got 3 teams, and it's not looking good in any 3 groups right now.
But do you really? I have learned hope is sometimes very, very dangerous.
You're not wrong. You're not wrong. DFM, I am more than extremely happy for them. I'm glad that they made it into groups. Unfortunately, this is where their run stops, because everybody's run has to stop somewhere. This is going to be the last stop for DFM. While they looked good in the play-in stage, they did not look good. I don't think they look good enough to take on some of the very big powerhouse names, especially EDG and T1. They're going to get eaten up alive in this group, unfortunately. Moving on to Group C, we have our other Taiwanese, our number 1 Taiwanese seed. So we're probably going to hear a little bit more about Beyond Gaming when they start playing. We have Fnatic, we have Royal Never Give Up, and we have Hanwha Life. My crystal ball pick, which was before the whole tournament even started, you went and you picked one team out of everybody participating who you think is going to win the tournament. Honestly, 50-50 coin flip between Damwon and Royal Never Give Up. I've got my crystal ball pick on RNG. I think RNG goes the distance here, and for obvious reasons, I put them at the top of my Group C pick 'em. Unfortunately, we do have news that came in yesterday. Upset, the AD carry for Fnatic, had a family emergency and unfortunately has had to leave the tournament. Our best wishes and thoughts are with Upset and his family at this time. Upset and Riot did not go into specific information, but for it to be something big enough to cause you to want to or to have to leave Worlds, one can only imagine what it is that caused that. And out of respect, I'm not going to sit here and speculate or really talk on the topic any further. But Fnatic did release a statement saying that Upset could not continue with the tournament and was on an emergency flight home. With that being said, originally, before this announcement happened, I would have had Fnatic in second place in this group. Fnatic is a very strong team. They've gone to the finals, I believe. It was either semifinals or finals at Worlds before. They are traditionally consistent on the international stage. And in this particular group, I think this is This is the easy group. You get one group every year where you have the easy group and then you have the group of death. I think this year the easy group is Group C, because the only real contender you have to deal with in this group is Royal Never Give Up. Everybody else, I think, has a pretty equal chance.
The proper term is the group of life.
Yes, thank you. That's what I was looking for. I just couldn't think of it. Yeah, I think Group C is the group of life this year. Everybody, I think, has a pretty equal chance. But with unfortunately with the Fnatic news, I had to drop them in my pick'ems like 30 minutes before they locked, and I ended up moving Hanwha Life up over them. I think the Chovy show without upset, and this is the big differentiation or the big asterisk I have to put here. With Fnatic not having upset, I think the Chovy show is just big enough and has just enough viewers and just good enough ratings to be able to carry them into the knockout stage. If Fnatic had upset, I say no way in hell. And I think Fnatic would have gotten out of that group. Am I still rooting for Fnatic? Of course I am. Am I sad about what happened? Of course. Do I think Fnatic's mental is probably gutted right now? Absolutely. You lose a teammate that you've been practicing with, and that that's a fifth of that's a pretty major component of your synergy. And I can't imagine how upset feels right now. He's wherever he is in the world right now, having to watch his team play without him on the biggest stage of them all, and all he can do is sit there and hope and pray. And watch his team take a nosedive in the power rankings because he had to leave. And I don't mean to say this is any flame. This is not any hate. This is not any flame towards Fnatic. Obviously, real life happens. I understand that. Unfortunately, you have to look at the realist approach to the analytical approach to the situation. And logically, I don't think Fnatic has what it takes to beat out Hanwha Life. PSG Talon, honestly, they'll probably win a couple of games here and there, but I don't think they ever had a serious chance. I know they did good at MSI, but I don't rank PSG Talon very high up on this group, at least not with Royal Give Up in there, or RNG in there, excuse me. And the fact that you've got you now have the Chovy show to deal with because Hanwha Life ended up in this group. So at the end of the day, my groups, my group C pick'ems are going to be RNG, Hanwha Life, Fnatic, and PSG Talon. Moving on to Group D, we've got Mad Lions, Gen G, Team Liquid, and LNG. This group, I think, is going to be the most interesting group out of all of them. I don't know if I call it the group of life or the group of death. This is the group of long drawn out skirmishes. This is the Saturday Night's All Right for Fighting group. All of these teams are good skirmish teams. I think they're on this. They're pretty much. Gen G, I think, maybe outperforms some of these groups by virtue of having the Korean Eastern team buff. But I think all of these teams are somewhat even with each other. Maybe LNG Esports is the weakest, which is why I actually put them at the bottom of my group here. Usually, if you're a play-in team, and unfortunately, I even do count Cloud9 in on this one. When you're a play-in team, generally speaking, you're a lot weaker than the teams that are in the group stage. Sure, you played through. You've got you've got the jitters out of the way, so to speak. So you might get a good early cheese off of some of these teams, but overall, the play-in teams I don't think stand muster to the group stage teams. Um, so I think LNG stops here. Um, at the top of this group, I put Mad Lions. They did absolutely phenomenal in the LEC over there in Europe. This last split, I think they're going to have a strong showing. And in a group where it's going to be full of nothing but skirmishes, I think they edge it out and get out on top. On the flip side, I think this is not even on the flip side in anything. I put Team Liquid down next in the second spot. Again, Team Liquid, strong team. They've had some pretty consistent groups performances in Worlds. I think they can get out here. Gen G, great team, but I believe they're the third seed out of Korea. They've got some issues to work on. I think that the LEC and I think the Western teams cheese it out just enough to beat out Gen G. It's probably going to be close. It's probably going to come down to like a 1-game decision. But I think that Mad Lions, then Team Liquid, then Gen G, then LNG. Now moving in, talking a little bit about these groups and breaking them down just a little bit further. I do want to break down Group D here because this is the group that I think is the most interesting. Honestly, I think Group D is the best bet for Western teams in this tournament. Typically, we don't see great performances, or at least deep performances, out of Western teams at Worlds. It just does not happen. The Eastern teams have better communication, better macro, better understanding of the game, better execution, and take down the Western teams. I think Group D overall is probably the weakest group as far as Eastern teams go. As far as Korea's representative, China's representative, I think we see EU and NA get out of this group 100%.
So, I have a minor question about this. Now, I know we talk about international tournaments and other sports. You have a little bit of like a home field or home court advantage. I know, especially in the World Cup, you see historically South American teams fare better when it's on North American or South American soil. European teams fare better when it's over in Europe. Is there any sort of advantage for something like this that would come into play, or is it strictly nullified?
Yes and no. I think if this were a non-COVID world, right? Like let's go back to, I don't know, say 2016, 2017, right? We had record-breaking audience attendance for Worlds. Yeah, I think where they hold Worlds is definitely a huge buff. Maybe not huge buff, but it's a significant buff to the particular region that's playing there. But generally speaking, I think it comes down more to the culture of it, which is why you get, like, for example, with the World Cup, you tend to see it do better in North American or South American soil because the culture of football is a lot of soccer football, not American football. Is a lot more ingrained in those countries. In the eastern countries, esports, video games as a sport, that's a normal cultural thing there. Like that's a normalized daily part of life there. They have laws about esports, like how we have, federal laws through Congress and all that. Like they have laws about esports. They have a whole government like agency, like how we have like the FDA or the EPA or whatever. They have like Korea has an entire agency, like government agency directed to the oversight of esports and video games. You don't have that in Western countries. So I think that it's not so much a where the tournament is being held difference, it's a cultural difference. Now, sure, the country that hosts Worlds, they're more than likely going to have the most fans that show up to cheer them on. Um, but and those particular teams, but I think that at least for the past couple of years, excuse me, that buff has been nullified simply because of COVID. You aren't having games with audiences, so you don't have actual fans in the stands to cheer for these teams. It's all done virtually and online, and these players don't see that. Maybe they go on social media a little bit, send out a quick tweet or whatever. And I think a lot of these teams, if they're smart, if I'm a coach, I'm keeping my players off of social media, especially if I'm a North American team, or really a Western team, because unfortunately, Twitter and other social media get salty. Especially when these teams don't perform properly. They're like, "Oh, you could have done this, you could have done that," and they backseat coach, they backseat analyze, and that can send a player on tilt. I don't care how professional you are. You see enough. Somebody says somebody calls you a piece of shit enough times. I don't care how resilient you are. Eventually, you're gonna start thinking you're a piece of shit. And so I think a lot of these players don't see as much of the fan support as they have in previous years because of that. They don't see the people out there in the crowds. They're probably staying off of social media a little bit more than they used to be, because folks are a little bit more vocal on social media these days. You've got everybody and their grandmother, no offense to us or anybody else, but everybody and their grandmother has a podcast or a Twitch channel or something where they're talking about the games, they're talking about the plays, they're talking about everything. I mean, hell, look at what we're doing right now. There's freedom to express how people feel about a player's performance, the state of the game, etc. And that I think factors in as well.
You're not entirely wrong in that sentiment, though. Believe me, in all of my other realms, whenever I do other sets of analyses, yeah, you're not wrong.
So and yeah, I'll take a jab at myself. I don't mind. I don't care. I got nothing to lose. Oh, this is fun. I'm not saying I'm not Thorin. I'm not LS. I'm not Travis Gafford. I'm not, I will dominate. I'm not any of these guys who sit back and I'm not the guys from the dive. I'm not Euphoria. I'm not all these big podcasts that are going to sit here and put out hour and a half episodes talking about one play for 30 minutes. This is here to have fun, but unfortunately, I'm sure some of these players do listen to some of these podcasts and watch some of these shows, and when they see something broken down, especially in a negative way, I think it gets to them. I think that Worlds is a 50% test of mental, 50% test of skill.
And if any of the players happen to be listening or watching this at any point, number one, thank you. And number two, please follow us everywhere: Discord, Facebook, Twitter, and Twitch. Just saying.
Yeah, that would be nice. Follow W2M Network on Twitch. Follow me, the Andesian. That would be nice. That you'd make my life. Yeah, I do a lot of tweeting during Worlds. I don't get a lot of engagement, so I remember when, and they've done it a little. They've done it like 1 or 2 times so far this year, but they used to do it a lot more often, where they would feature tweets on the Riot broadcast. Like they'd have like a little sidebar or something in the browser window to watch the game, where they would highlight different tweets from the community. I used to end up on there quite a bit, but they stopped doing that when they went to the new format of the LOL Esports website. So I missed that. Hey, anybody from Riot that are listening, bring back that old design. Put the featured tweets back up. Otherwise, what's the point of having the hashtag? But I think that wraps up the group stage, or not the group stage, but talking about the groups for now. Like I said, group A, group of death. I feel bad for Cloud9. Worst possible situation to be in was to end up in group A, I think. Because they got to get through FPX and they got to get through Damwon, and I don't think they do it. Group B, I think again, 100 Thieves has a shot. T1, Faker's got something to prove. Edward Gaming is either going to it's feast or famine for them in typical international fashion. Unfortunately, this year they're looking very much feast and not so starved. So, and well, DFM, I unfortunately hate to say it, but that's a non-factor. Group C, Group of Life, anybody there has a shot. Obviously, Roy RNG will take first place. I don't see any timeline or any universe where that doesn't happen. And if it does, it would be definitely major upsets, but they at the very least will get out of that. They will 100% get out of that group. I think it's a series of coin flips who has the better macro, and who understands the meta better, as to who gets out in second place in that group. Now today, almost 24 hours ago now, was day one of the group stage. I'm going to take a look at the. I'm going to send over. You're probably going to have to scroll up a little bit here, Eric. But we'll take a look at today's results. And we'll break down the games. My predictions on Twitter, I went 6 for 8. I had a pretty good prediction day here. Some of these were honestly no-brainers, and then a couple of them were okay, these could be close, and then a couple of them just went in a direction that I did, and then, well, one of them was it was close, and the other one went in the direction that I did not intend it for it to go in. You're probably going to want to scroll that up to yesterday, because it'll show the results. There you go. All right, so we started off with probably the most anticipated game of Worlds so far. The number 1 Korean seed versus the number 1 Chinese seed in Fun Plus Phoenix. This game, honestly, Curb Stomp. Curb Stomp was definitely the name of this game. Aside from the narrative, aside from all of the very big names on both of these teams, this was not the game I don't think anybody was hoping for, in all honesty. This was Damwon Gaming came in and said, "Oh, it's time for us to play. Okay, let's turn on curbstomp.exe," which is a reference to all of the rewards today. And they just used FPX as a punching bag. It was just completely dominant control of the entire game. Everything from early game, from laning, the whole thing was just, this was an opening statement. The reigning champion, the defending champions, fired the first shot, walking into the studio with the trophy in hand, saying, "Here it is. come get it. Plain and simple. Next game we had RNG versus PSG Talon. Honestly, it turned into a little bit of a barn burner. The early game was looking to very much be okay, this is RNG. They're going to do RNG things. They're going up against a very weak, I don't want to say third or wild card region, but the wild card region back when we had those things. The PSG pulled out the Tryndamere. The Tryndamere did Tryndamere things. I'm sick and tired of talking about Tryndamere, and unfortunately, I'm pretty sure I'm going to be talking about it even more through the remainder of the group stage. Why? Because Gore Drinker is busted. That's why. Riot, please nerf Gore Drinker and other healing items. I don't know why I have to say this every year, especially at Worlds, but I do. There was some overextensions by RNG in the late game. Almost looked like it could have been an upset, but at the end of the day, RNG, the MSI champions, they showed up. They said, "Okay, we're here. It's on." Our next game we had Hanwha Life versus Fnatic. Now, if you had told me that yesterday that upset, like if you had asked me to predict this game before the upset news, I would have gave it to Fnatic hands down every day of the week. Unfortunately, the Chovy show showed up, and they took it over. It was a very strong early game by Fnatic. But Hanwha ends up I think they had the better laning phase. Fnatic tried to create a little bit of chaos with some of the plays. But once the jungle situation panned out, and once Hanwha Life got on the same page, and Willer was able to start making the right plays in the jungle, the game was over. There was definitely a team difference between Hanwha Life and Fnatic, especially given the upset situation. Again, like I said, the guys at Fnatic, it's the same boat as Beyond Gaming. That the mental is not all there right now because they're probably worried about their boy upset, which is understandable. Bwipo did good. I think that's the notable standout performance. Fnatic's Bwipo, wide Bwipo was very wide. He was the silver lining in this. If he can continue his performance like he did today, I think Fnatic has a shot of winning enough games to get out of this group. But Hanwha Life and it's not just the Chovy show over there at Hanwha Life. I know we're memeing on Chovy and we're saying that he is the star carrier, and he is. I mean, there's it's no doubting it. But Hanwha Life's other lane, the side lanes, they have good talent all around on that team. They are a team that can contend. I think this game showed that it wasn't just about Chovy. And at the end of the day, they took home the win. Gen G versus Gen G versus LNG. The only thing that needs to be said about this was BDD on Zoe. That's all that needs to be said. 2 back-to-back kills under tower on BDD Zoe. There were a lot of people that on social media that wanted to doubt BDD and his capability to perform. Because unfortunately, that's just pretty much how it is in Korea. It's, are you better than Faker? Yes or no? And resoundingly, it's usually no. But pretty much that was BDD's hour of power. He is definitely one of the best mid laners in the world right now, especially after seeing that Zoe performance. I am not surprised in the slightest at all whatsoever if moving forward in the tournament he has that champion banned away from him. Genji picks up the win, and there you go. The next game we had T1 versus DFM. The return of Faker. The man walked in with an electric guitar in hand and he said, "I'm back." And well, he not only did he say it, he showed it. I tweeted at some people. I haven't gotten any replies, but I'm pretty sure that this match set some records for biggest differences in League of Legends. If I remember correctly, the gold difference between the two teams at the end was close to 20,000. The average a runaway win is like 12 to 14. The average win, like considered a locked game, is pretty much considered a 10k gold lead. 20 or damn close to it. I'm pretty sure that has to be the largest gold lead ever in a world's game. Has to be. Like, I would be utterly surprised if you showed me a game that had a bigger one. This was a bigger blowout than, well, I don't know a bigger blowout, honestly. I think maybe the bigger blowout was 2016. The very first, I don't remember the two teams off the top of my head. I could probably have look it up here, but 2016 when we had the last professional surrender in League of Legends, a 20-minute game. This might as well have been one of those, but it was worse. If you're looking for a world's game that's competitive and shows you two top tier or supposed to be top tier teams playing each other, this was not it. You can skip watching the VOD for this one. Now, if your thing is watching absolute curb stomps, this is a 5-star must recommend game. But yeah, no, DFM got absolutely embarrassed in this game, and this is why I had put them at the bottom of the group. Our next game is going to be Edward Gaming. I'm going to go through these a little bit faster here. Edward Gaming versus 100 Thieves. One-sidedness continued. Unfortunately, it was not in the direction I thought it was going to be in. It ended up being 100 Thieves losing and Edward Gaming picking up the win. EDG got a free Rift Herald, which put 100 Thieves in desperation. And there's a few positives that can be taken away here. 100 Thieves did look good, but at the end of the day, Edward Gaming showed up in feast mode and not famine mode, at least for now. And they'll take the win. Team Liquid versus Mad Lions. Go back and watch the VOD. An amazing game between two teams. Surprisingly, it had to be NA versus EU to be the best game of the day. Team Liquid played, I think, the best game that they have played of League of Legends all year. I'm not talking about just, internationally. I'm talking about like through NA, through LCS, through like, this is the best game I've seen from them all year. They've fixed the problems. They were on form. They could be top of the group if they keep this up. Cloud9 versus Rogue. This was a shellacking. It was kind of close, but it torpedoed, and it ended up in a blowout. And I will be right back.
As we see, we got a little bit of a review there with a couple games left, but I must say, with some of these, now, when it comes to terms as far as the blowouts themselves, for those, and I can go international with this, for those in Australia, think when Greater Western Sydney, their appearance in the grand final, it was that bad with these terms of context. Here in North America, Broncos Seahawks Super Bowl 43-8, that sort of a shellacking is what we're on the order of talking about. And yeah, for something like that to happen that you haven't seen in the likes of a few years, even in the World Championships, that's a pretty significant sort of a beating. So that sort of clarifies that. We have a couple of matches left to review here. And then, yes, finally getting to what I was talking about with the chaos that, again, is more of an all-knowing, all-seeing being in a simultaneous sense. I knew there was going to be some forms of chaos because, of course, in any event, there always is. And I'm honestly hoping we delve into that a bit more before the end of the show because, yes, I could stand with just a teeny bit of groveling just after my very feet with him and predicting all of these things, especially since he said with Cloud9, those sorts of games being on brand. He's mentioned Cloud9 being on brand quite a bit. So I'm curious to see how that develops. And he should be back momentarily so we can wrap up this discussion. But as someone who is relatively new to these particular depths of League of Legends and these competitions, overall, I must say there is quite a bit of intrigue, and that makes me, as more of a casual fan, or potentially soon to be fan, very appreciative. So I will definitely say that. So now, I guess sitting, waiting for his return, see what else he has going on, because reviewing his notes, as I pull them up here, thankfully, not a whole lot left. So we've covered that. We've covered that. Covering the breakdowns of the groups. All these things. So yes, not too much longer once he returns. So, not a lot left to go. I'm actually wondering if I'm going to be editing this portion out once we go ahead and have the audio version of this podcast, which will be available on a variety of different platforms: Stitcher, Spreaker, iHeartRadio, Podbean, Castbox, Overcast, Spotify. We have a bunch here. And of course, for your viewing pleasure, as I would hope that you're doing right now and appreciate with you live, dropping in comments. If you so desire, go right ahead. We'll be sure to address those. But we're available on YouTube, on Facebook Live, on Twitch, on Twitter. For Twitch, twitch.tv/W2Mnet. Give us a follow. Help us out. We'll be able to do a lot more. Facebook, W2M Network. Twitter, W2M Network. So we pretty much got all of your bases covered. I hear some rumblings in the background. I hope that it means his imminent return. Also going over a bit of today's schedule. Oh my. Okay. And one other thing that I want to ask him about when he returns, looking at the schedule for the rest of the groups, you have massive days ahead. The last few days of the group stage, whereas Normally for teams, they would only have one group stage match per day. For the final few days of their group, they're having three. So I want to see how that fatigue is going to sort of come in really all around for making it an extra long broadcast day for the teams themselves. So something I want to pick up on once he returns. Speaking of,
Sorry about that.
you all good there?
Yeah, I'll let you. I'll explain after the show. So, what did you have? What did you tell our lovely viewers about? Did you do all the plugs and stuff? Because we're pretty much getting close to the end of the show, anyways.
I mentioned that different things in your notes, how we still have talked about the final bit of the chaos these last couple of games. And I did have one question that'll be more pertinent as we go towards the end of the group stage,
Okay.
looking ahead to the schedule.
Okay.
Now, for these first few days in the group stage, each team is only having one match per day. But I'm noticing for the final matches, there's a good 4 day stretch to where every team will have three matches that particular day.
So they do. The tournament is organized into, I believe that's either double or triple round robin. I'm gonna double check here. Yeah, it's double round robin.
Mm-hmm.
So what they have traditionally done, unfortunately, it just with the way that they've, because they added play-ins, they have, Riot Games has decided we're going to add a lot more games, but we're not going to extend the time of the tournament, which means less time off. Traditionally, group stage lasted 2 weeks. The first week of groups was a smorgasbord of the first round robin, where different groups, like you would get like one match from all four groups a day at least. As you move later on into the tournament, they take a particular day and they dedicate it specifically to one group. So what you're seeing with these teams, with these days on the schedule where there's, multiple, like say for example on Sunday the 7th, I believe, which is this Sunday, you see RNG, Fnatic, PSG, Hanwha Life. That's the only four teams that play. Well, that's because they're resolving that group. They pick a particular day where they're going to resolve one particular group, and they just do that until all the groups are resolved. They'll play any tiebreakers that need to be played, and then go from there. They play the tiebreakers at the end of the day for the group day. So, like for example, Sunday is the group day for, what is that group? That's Group C. Yeah, that's what I thought. So they'll play all of those excuse me, they'll play all of those matches, and then at the end of that day, if there's a if there's a tie for whatever reason, they'll figure out the tiebreaker. Let me pull up the rules for the tournament and figure out what the tiebreaker rules are. I don't think there's a capability of there being a tie. So uh yeah, I can't find tiebreaker rules. I don't believe it's possible for there to be a tie in these groups. I'm not sure. I could be wrong, but
With the double round robins, yes, it's possible.
yeah, I can't find maybe I'm wondering if it uses the same tiebreaker rules as the play-ins did.
Because my only thing would be thinking The only way that they would have ties is maybe first and second, definitely second and third. Because those would be the critical positions. Like winning your group or finishing runner up determines who you would play in the quarterfinals. And of course, second and third being do you make the quarterfinals or not?
Well, in this, yeah, I was going to say, in here, it's top two teams in each group move on to quarters, and the bottom two are just flat out eliminated. There's no like redemption arc like the play-ins had. There's no losers redemption bracket. It's just straight up top two move on, bottom two you're gone.
See, we in the normal world would call that a repechage.
I'm not even going to try to repeat that or pronounce that or anything.
Repechage.
Repechage.
There you go.
Okay, excellent. I've learned something new today.
Repechage for those who are curious.
That's what I thought. That's how I thought it was spelled. Yeah, but yeah, no, that's they resolved the teams, or they resolved the groups individually in what was traditionally the second week of groups, because they used to do 3 broadcast days, right? So, or 3-day broadcast weeks,
Mm-hmm.
sometimes 4. But again, since they've added play-ins, they don't want to expand how long the tournament takes. They want to keep it at a month long, so less time off. Which means the schedule is not as defined. Like, it's still the same way it's always been. It just doesn't look as organized as it used to.
So, and I get that. I'm just wondering for, that dedicated group day, basically, how are the teams going to handle that day, having all 3 of those games, potentially 4 if there's a tiebreaker, instead of just the one?
Well, what do you mean like that? Like the are you talking about the mental preparation? Or are you talking
Yeah,
about
like because for something like that, I can imagine you have a normal routine, you have your one particular match, and then that's it. You can cool down, go over film sessions, however you would do it. But the fact that you have to go ahead and go 3 matches, those final 3 ones in a single day, I would think, from my perspective, there had to be some level of fatigue or something like that that could set in.
I mean, there is some there the fatigue thing is real. It can definitely be there. We've seen some teams in the past that will go on tilt because they'll lose, 1 game or 2 games, and then that 3rd game they're just like, screw it, we give up. Mental fatigue is definitely a thing. Again, like I said earlier in the episode, Worlds is 50% test of skill, 50% test of mentality, mental fortitude. Like, it's the game is not just about, at least at this level, it becomes more than just the mechanics of the game. It's the intricacies of how the game is played. Like, how can you handle back-to-back games? How can you handle, can you whatchamacallit, have you done your prep work right? Do you have the right pick ban draft set up? Like, do you have the right the right draft stuff done? It's, there's a lot of because here's the thing, a lot of these teams, as well, as they'll get multiple days off completely before, or at least most of these teams will get multiple days off. Like, there's one unlucky group that they're gonna play 1 game the day before, and then they go in, and that's their group day. But like, say for example, Cloud9 will play today, and then they'll play tomorrow, one game a day, and then Friday, that's their group day. That's they have to go in hard. But on the other hand, let's see. That's Group A. That's Group. So we'll look at the Gen G group, right? So Gen G, the last day that they play is going to be tomorrow, right? They'll play tomorrow against Team Liquid, and then they have Friday off, they have Saturday off, they have Sunday off, they play Monday. Like some groups get lucky. They get a few days off to go through and look at games or whatever. And then you have unlucky groups like the Cloud9 group, for example, where they're playing the next several days in a row, but they'll get Saturday, Sunday, Monday. They'll get like over a week off.
Okay.
They try to balance it as much as possible. Honestly, part of me would rather them, like, I like seeing the round robin groups in the mashed up format, or it's like you've got 2 matches or 4 matches a day from each group over like 3 days, but to get everybody done. But honestly, I would rather them do it where it's like, okay, Group A first round robin is today, Group A second round robin is tomorrow, or Group A second round robin is Thursday. Like say they played Monday, to give them, I don't know, 2 days off, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then Group B 2 days off, Group C 2 days off, Group D 2 days off, and then it comes around to Group A, that's their second round robin day. Group B, that's their second round robin. That way everybody gets the same equal amount of time off to strategize. They've got their first round out of the way. They can look at the film, they can look at their opponent. They have enough time to look at the VODs of them playing their opponents, figure out, okay, maybe they're going to go for XYZ champion in a draft. Maybe they want to scale early. Maybe there's a team who has a jungler that favors a early top side gank at level 2, for example. Maybe you've got a team that they want to put bot side priority, get as many dragons, like get the drakes up as fast as they're coming. You have a team that, trying to play around the 2v2 bot lane, you're going to have a lot of jungle pressure down there. Like, you go through, there's a lot of strategic analysis to be had. And I would like to see it a little bit more fair, I guess you could say. Maybe not fair, but even on that particular portion of the scheduling. But at the same time, I think it's also done partly in the name of viewership. I think folks are going to get bored if they see the same 3 teams compete for 2 days in a row in clips. They break it up for good reason. It's like, oh, okay, now we're talking about Group A. We're going to hear about these 4 teams for the next 3 days in a row. So that's I think that's the answer to your question there.
Hey, that makes a lot more sense.
Now, ending the show, normally, and I know I talked about this partly earlier. Let me go back up here. Okay. I know we talked about this earlier on during play-ins, where Worlds is the end of the season, right? It's the end of the year. Once Worlds is done, you get a couple of months off. There's an off season. You get your effectively your Pro Bowl sometime in late November, early December. That's completely opt-in. Somebody doesn't want to show up, they don't have to. The global contracts, like the team contracts for the players, typically Riot has a date that they're set to expire. right? Like the contracts are controlled by Riot. It's if you're going to pick up a player, they play for a split or for a year or for whatever, and it's from X date to Y date that's set by Riot, right? And then you renew those contracts annually, when those dates expire. Riot loves to set this date for either middle of November or end of November. It's always November. This year, it's going to be a wonderful birthday for me because a lot of a good majority of contracts I'm seeing are going to be November 16th. That is when the biggest, that's like the draft day for for NFL kind of thing. Like that's the free agency day. That's when you hear all of the news about who's going where, who didn't get renewed, so on and so forth. Now, somebody can renew their contract ahead of time; it'll get updated in the database, and life is good. But that's the day where you hear the majority of news about team changes for the upcoming 2022 season, or at least that'll be for this year. Some teams have already gone ahead, and they'll some players and some teams with the blessing. In the case of the players, it's with the blessing of the teams, and in the case of the teams, they'll announce it. The Riot has some very serious anti-poaching policies. Any member, any personnel from any organization cannot talk to a player with the hopes of soliciting them to come play for their team without the expressed written permission of the team that they're currently playing for. Likewise, a player cannot go and talk to other organizations with the interest of with the interest of joining them without the players or without the team's permission.
So a lot of like anti-tampering rules.
Yes, there's a lot of anti-tampering and a lot of anti-poaching rules in Riot because unfortunately there's been some very significant tampering and poaching problems in the past. So sometimes you'll see, oh, we're intending to release X person. We have given them permission to seek out a different team or to explore their options, so on and so forth. That is. Having some microphone issues at the moment. Sorry.
There we go.
Does not want to stay on the little stand there. Keeps trying to fall over for some reason. But anyways, we do have some notable roster changes today to announce. Unicorns of Love have released their entire roster. Yes, the entire roster. After exiting Worlds over the weekend. They released a tweet on Twitter. Let me get the link to that, and we can get that up on the screen here. Should be it. Unicorns of Love. That is the Russian League representative at Worlds this year. Pretty consistent face for representing the Russian League in international events. They have decided to release their entire roster. They said in their statement, which hopefully we'll get on screen in a moment here, and I quote, "We accept the fact that players need constant development, and winning everything in the LCL for 3 years, it's time to move to the next level. It's time to try yourself in Europe, in EU Masters, and in the LEC." Unicorns of Love, I mean, LCL is a wild card region. They're small. It's one of those regions where there's pretty much you have one good team and then everybody else is just target practice. The Unicorns of Love have won their 5th championship in a row in that region. So that should tell you all that needs to be said there. They've never had good international results, unfortunately.
Well, except for that one particular this year, I mean. And no, I'm not going to let it go.
They only picked up one win this year, and then they got swept by Beyond Gaming. So, in the tiebreaker. So, they have said that they aren't doing this as a maneuver to disband the team or anything. They still want to go to international events. They still want to perform as well as they can. They just want to do it with the new team. They want to give the guys that have been there for a while the opportunity to actually go to better teams. Which good on you, good on Unicorns of Love for doing that. I'm happy that this is something that they've decided they wanted to do. I'm interested to see where these players end up. They could just go to other LCL teams. They could take their talents over to EU Masters or the LEC. We may even, depending on how good their English is, we may even see one or two of them end up here in North America on one of the lower ranked LCS teams, or maybe in an academy team. I don't know where these guys are going to go, but that's big roster news so far. We'll obviously we'll be on top of this along with other developments, and we'll see what roster Unicorns of Love end up fielding for spring 22. But in much bigger news, unfortunately, we don't really have we have a tweet to go with this one, but it's a video, so we can't really. I don't really want to play the video.
Depends on the type of video and the different material.
Oh, it's a Twitter video, but it's a little bit of a longer one. But G2 is releasing multiple components. By releasing, they're looking to trade. Is the exact wording really needs to be used here? They want to rebuild. Carlos Ocelot, who is the owner of G2, who you are now seeing on screen. He wants to rebuild the team, so they are looking to trade Reckless, Grabs, Wonder, Mickey, and Nelson.
Now with this 2.5 minutes, I think I should be able to play it.
They had a disappointing season this year. Normally you would think G2 would go to Worlds. They didn't even make it into Worlds this year. So they're getting rid of the head coach, the strategic coach. They're getting rid of all of the support staff that came with them. They're getting rid of their top laner and Wonder. They're getting rid of the support. Actually, they're getting rid of the bot lane, which is support Mickey and AD carry Reckless. There's been some rumors going on right now anyways that Reckless isn't happy with G2. He wants out. So part of this announcement, at least the Reckless part of this, is not surprising. But the rest of it is. I'm going to go ahead and let him play the video if he can.
Coming right up.
And then we can talk about this news because it's pretty significant.
Hi there, this is Carlos Ocelot from G2 Esports, and today we have official news. As you guys know already, 2021 League of Legends for G2 wasn't good, specifically, considering the fact that we want to win worlds, and that is actually our goal, to win worlds. And everything we have done since the inception of G2 and everything we're doing right now is to win worlds. So these changes are very, very tough to make. And trust me when I say we've spent hours and hours upon hours of discussing internally with the players that stay between the organization, everything. And, with our commercial team, partnerships team, content team, everybody as well, was part of these discussions at times, And as a result of these discussions, we have decided to bench and look to trade Wonder, Mickey, Reckless, Grabs, and Nelson, and look to also replace the rest of the support staff. Now, this, as I said, it was really tough to come into as conclusion. We love every single one of the people that are no longer going to be with us moving forward, and their work with us has been incredible. And not only the work in game, but also the content they've done with us, with the partners. I mean, they've been great to us, and yeah, we're very proud of having had them in the team. And having won MSI together, having got second in Worlds, having destroyed Europe over and over. And for Reckless, he came in this last year, and he really did his best. Played solo queue a lot, did a lot of content for us, for our partners, and he was great to us. So only great words to say about everybody that's no longer going to be with us. And I hope you guys, G2 fans, are also thanking them for their work over the years. Okay. So with that said, it is in our best interest that they land somewhere nice and where they can continue to succeed, and we will not be blocking any trades. Simple as that. With that said, it's time to rebuild. I've said it 1,000 times already, and I'll say it again. Rebuild. 2022, I'm hopeful for it because I know what we're working on, and it is very exciting. And I think you should be excited too, although you don't know anything yet. But yeah, my hope and wish is that you look back 12 months from now and you're proud of our work, okay? Winning worlds still in the cards. Winning worlds still our main goal. And winning worlds is what we'll do. Love you guys.
Yeah, so that is some interesting news coming out of G2. This is a team, mind you, for because obviously some background may be needed here. Between 2018 and 2020, G2 have reached at least the semifinals at Worlds. This isn't exactly like a low budget, low seed, low like mid-grade team. G2 is a top of the line team, right? And the fact that they're getting rid of the people that they're getting rid of, especially Wonder and Grabs, who have been on this G2 team playing significant roles in all three of their deep world championship runs over the past 3 years. It's definitely, it comes a little bit as a shock. Ocelot has not led people wrong. He is a meme machine, sure, on Twitter, sure. But if he thinks this is in the best interests of G2, I'm inclined to agree with him.
Well, I mean, you have to understand when you have certain teams, and again, this is all around, whether we talk about dynasties and golden generations, a lot of times when you have a pretty significant bump or pretty significant drop off, it's not like, oh, you're looking for an out to try to go ahead and rebuild, but it's like, maybe we've had this run, and if it's going like this, you look hard and see, okay, was this just a blip? Then you realize if it's not, then you go ahead and you start the process quickly. So from that perspective, I can kind of understand.
Yeah, and let's not forget, G2 has Caps, which is the best mid laner in the EU right now. I know some people are going to want to debate me on this, but Caps is by far the best mid laner in EU right now as we speak this very moment. They've also got Jankos, and the fact that those two are sticking around shows me that G2 wants to double down on the investment that they've put in to Caps, which was not a cheap one, by the way. And they want to build a team specifically around those two players, just like when T1 lost the world championship, they sacked the entire team. And you're right, Eric. They sacked the entire team and they rebuilt the team around Faker because Faker is their star player. They're the guy that they know that can carry the game, that can carry the team. So I'm interested to see where the folks that are leaving G2 end up. Obviously, there's some significant talent leaving. I'm already going to call it. I'm out of the three players. I'm not surprised if one of them ends up in NA. In fact, I would be willing to be held accountable to this prediction later on down the line by spring.
Marking the tape for this one.
That, I mean, I've already made enough predictions that I intend to be held to in this episode. So screw it. Why not keep the trend going, right? I think one of those players is going to come over to NA. I am going to go out on a limb. Now, this is not something I want to be held to because I don't have that much guarantee in it. But I do think that it's not guaranteed to be Reckless. Yes, Reckless is an amazing AD carry. We've brought over one set of EU AD carries, and we see how that's working out for us, which is working out well. But I don't think it's Reckless. I don't think Reckless is the one that comes over to NA. At least I'm not guaranteeing it. Is it going to happen? If he can be afforded, a G2 is willing to let him go, let his contract go for the right price. Sure. But I don't put my money on Reckless being the one that comes over to NA. But I guarantee you, one of those three players comes over to NA. I do think Reckless and Mickey X will split. I don't think they're going to be a package deal anywhere. As far as Grabs and Nelson, Grabs is a good coach. Obviously, he knows what he's doing. He knows how the game works. He knows how to draft. He knows how to develop players, given the fact that he's been at the helm of G2 when they've made these deep worlds runs, when they've made these deep when they've, won these LEC titles. Obviously, he's an experienced coach. He knows what he's doing. I think his options are honestly the widest that are on the table. Good coaches, honestly, I think right now are hard to come by because the good coaches, they have their gigs. They want to stay at their gigs. It takes a hell of an upset and a hell of a deal for a coach to go to another team, especially a good one. I think the last time we saw it probably was when Reaper left Cloud9. And some folks are probably going to argue me and say, oh, Reaper really isn't that great of a coach. And I'm not here to make that debate right now. But I'm significantly invested into where these guys end up going. I would love to see who G2 picks up. I don't know who's going to be on the market. Obviously, we'll find out pretty much closer to the that lovely mid-November and November free agent day. December is going to be very interesting as far as free agency moves go. I know a lot of the leagues will start up mid-January. It's usually like second weekend of January is when we see spring. So I would not be. I'm pretty sure we'll see roster locks or defined rosters by first weekend of January. So this is something we'll keep an eye on. We'll come back to this topic, in a month or two time, and see how well we think G2 is rebuilding. But that's pretty much, that sums up the first week of groups, or not groups, sorry, the first week of Worlds, with the play-in stage. Out of all of the play-in teams, at the end of the day, we had LNG, Hanwha Life, Cloud9, and Detonation Focus Me emerge victorious out of there. They slotted into respective groups. And we've got the first actual day, in my opinion. I've never really counted play-ins as part of the tournament. It feels weird. But we've got the first actual day out of the tournament out of the way. Some of these teams are looking as strong as I expected them to. Others kind of look a little lacking, or played a little messy. But we've got today, games start in about 3 hours from now. So is when we should expect to see the Riot games to go live with pregame analysis and all that wonderful stuff. Where people who are a lot more qualified than me will talk about teams and plays and stuff. And yeah. But I think that is going to go ahead and wrap it up for today's show here, right at the 2-hour mark. So this is about where I expected to be. If you've been listening for the entire 2 hours, thank you so much for listening. You have been listening to Video Games to the Max. This is a presentation of the W2M Network. My name is Bryan Espinoza. I have my wonderful producer / co-host Eric Watkins here, who's going to tell you about all of our social media and where to find all of this stuff, because I don't have all that memorized yet.
Again, for those of you who prefer watching, thank you for being on Twitch, twitch.com/W2Mnet. Give us a follow. Live on Twitter at W2M Network. Live on a Facebook page as well, W2M Network there. And W2M Network on YouTube. This will be uploaded most likely sometime later today. And then for those who prefer the audio format, this will also be uploaded Stitcher, Spreaker, Podbean, Castbox, iHeartRadio, Spotify, Overcast, basically you name it. We are going to be on some feed somewhere. You can follow Bryan here at the Andesian on Twitter.
Yes, if you would like my my real-time commentary on games, predictions, etc., so on and so forth, feel free to follow me on Twitter. You'll get a lot of that. I retweet a lot of stuff as well, from other people who are significantly more qualified than me, to talk about these things, and or they get paid for it. But yes, this has been a heck of a show. I'm looking forward to day 2 tomorrow. That we'll probably have another late night pre-show sort of thing for the wrap up. I think this works a lot better than trying to do a show right after the broadcast day ends and I'm just dead tired, exhausted from 8 or 10 hours worth of games. So, but again, thank you so much for watching or listening. This has been Video Games to the Max. Good night.